Hello friends, welcome to GCA. I hope you all are doing good. So today the video is regarding the basic information about the Indian Army, and I'm going to cover this video in a crisp way. Will not go in detail, but in a short span of time I will give brief information about each and everything, and this information might be helpful in your SSB interview. So again, without wasting any time, let us start. So let us first discuss the role of the Indian Army. So the primary role of the Indian Army is to maintain territorial integrity, that is, to protect the territorial borders of our country from an external threat, that is the foreign aggression, especially from our hostile neighbors like China and Pakistan. And second is to defend country against insurgency, for example, the proxy war waged by Pakistan in Jammu and Kashmir. Secondly, to provide assistance to civil community during natural and man-made disaster. So whenever there is a natural or man-made disaster in the country, so we have always seen the Indian Armed Forces are always at front. Another role is to provide troops for the United Nations peacekeeping missions. So from last many decades, Indian Army is contributing to the United Nations peacekeeping missions by providing troops every year. So these are the roles of the Indian Army. So moving to the basic information of the Indian Army. Indian Army is the second largest standing army in the world after the Chinese Army, with more than 1.2 million active troops. And very soon we are going to surpass the Chinese Army, as last year China decided to cut 50% of their army strength, as they will be focusing more on their navy. So thereafter Indian Army will become the largest standing army in the world. Now talking about some brief history of the Indian Army. So Indian Army basically originated from the armies of East India Company, which later became the British Indian Army. And the armies of the princely state, they were merged together into the National Army after the independence. So the units and the regiments of the Indian Army, they have diverse histories, and over the years they have participated in a number of battles and campaigns around the world. Motto of the Indian Army is service before self, and every year 15th of January is celebrated as Army Day, because on the same day in 1949, Field Marshal K.M. Cariappa, who was then a Lieutenant General, he became the first Commander-in-Chief of the Indian Army when he took charge from the last British General of our Army, Sir Francis. The President of India is the Supreme Commander of the Indian Armed Forces, and each service has its own chief. In case of Army, it is known as the Chief of Army Staff, who is a 4-star general. Till date, only 2 officers have been conferred with the rank of Field Marshal, which is a 5-star rank, which is the highest rank in the Indian Army. The 2 officers are, first is the Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw, who was conferred with the rank on 1st of January 1973. The second one is Field Marshal K.M. Cariappa, who was conferred the rank on 15th of January 1986. Last year, another position was created, known as the position of CDS, which stands for Chief of Defence Staff. CDS is also a 4-star general officer, who is the most senior serving officer of the armed forces. CDS is a tri-service chief, and it is basically a single point contact for advice on all the military matters by the government. Actually, the need to create CDS was felt after the Kargil War, but it was finally on 15th of August 2019 when PM Modi announced that the position of CDS will be created soon. So it was finally on 1st of January 2020 when General Bipin Rawat, he took over as the first Chief of Defence Staff of the Indian Armed Forces. CDS is also in charge of the Tri-Services Command, which is at Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and the Strategic Forces Command of the nuclear weapons, and along with the upcoming Cyber as well as the Space Command. Presently, the Commander-in-Chief of the Indian Army, that is the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, is the President Ramnath Kovind. Chief of the Defence Staff is the General Bipin Rawat. Chief of the Army Staff is General M.M. Nirvani. And the Vice Chief of the Army is the Lieutenant General Chandi Prasad Mukherjee. Talking about the structure of the Indian Army is divided into total of 7 commands, 6 administrative commands, and 1 training command. And each command is headed by an officer of the rank of Lieutenant General. The commands of the Indian Army are as follows. The first is the Northern Command, which is at Udhampur, then the Western Command at Chandimandir, Central Command at Lucknow, Eastern Command at Kolkata, Southern Command at Pune, Southern Western Command at Jaipur, and finally the Training Command is at Shimla. And along with it, there are 2 joint commands, also known as Tri-Service Command, which is commanded by CDS. So these commands are Strategic Forces Command and Andaman and Nicobar Command. Talking about the operational structure, so these commands are further divided into various corps, which are also commanded by an officer of the rank of Lieutenant General, who is junior in service to the Army Commander. Now there are 2 types of corps. The first is the Strike, also known as the Offensive Corps. where the main purpose is to launch an offensive into the enemy territory. And these basically consist of the mechanized troops, that is the armored corps, along with the mechanized infantry. The second is the hoarding, also known as the mountain corps, where the main purpose is to hold the defenses of the country and prevent enemy into entering our own territory. So these corps are further divided into various divisions, basically 3 to 5 divisions, and further 3 to 4 independent brigades, so which are commanded by an officer of the rank of Major General and Brigadier respectively. So presently, Indian Army has total of 37 divisions, including 4 rapid, that is the reorganized Army plain infantry divisions, 18 infantry divisions, 10 mountain divisions, 3 armored divisions, and 2 artillery divisions. And each division is further divided into 3 to 4 brigades, which are commanded by brigadier. And each brigade is further divided into 3 to 4 regiments or battalions, or also known as a unit. So if you want to understand the structure of the Indian Army in detail, I've already made a video. You can find the link from the I button. So on the basis of operational role, Indian Army is mainly categorized into 3 main elements. The first is the combat element. So these are the elements that fight physically with the enemy on the ground, and these consist of infantry, armored corps, and mechanized infantry. Then the second is the combat supporting elements, and these are the elements that support the combat elements with massive firepower and air cover, and these consist of artillery, Army Air Defense, the Corps of Engineers, Army Aviation Corps, and the Special Forces. Then the third one is the services, also known as the logistic elements. So these are the elements that provide the logistic support to the combat as well as the combat supporting element, and these mainly consist of the Army Service Corps and Army Ordnance Corps. Now I will discuss all these elements briefly. Beginning with the combat elements, first one is the mechanized forces, which consist of armored corps and mechanized infantry. So talking about armored corps, the main role of the armored corps is to deliver firepower with speed at desired place, and these consist of main battle tanks like T-72, T-90 and Arjun. And I've already uploaded a detailed video on the armored corps, and if you want to watch, you can click the link on the I button. The second one is the mechanized infantry. So these are the forces that follows tank, and they have BMPs, which are infantry fighting vehicles. The main advantage of the mechanized infantry is that in BMPs, they also carry a section of soldiers. Next is the infantry, which means soldiers on the foot that fight hand-to-hand combat with the enemy. So the infantry is the largest component of the Indian Army, which is also known as the backbone of the army. And it is also engaged in various CI operations in Jammu and Kashmir as well as in the northeastern part of India. The weapon system held with the infantry include various rifles, machine guns, grenade launchers, mortars, and rocket launchers. And I've already uploaded a detailed video on infantry also. You can click the link and find the playlist named Regimento series. So talking about combat supporting elements, the first is the artillery. So the main role of the artillery is to provide covering fire to the moving elements with the help of its long-range guns like the field guns and howitzers. The weapon system also include multi-barrel rocket launchers. So the troops of the artillery, they engage enemy at a very longer distance. So the detailed video on artillery is already uploaded. Then the next is the Army Air Defense. So the main role of the Army Air Defense is to guard sensitive locations like headquarters and communications centers from the enemy air attack. So the Army Air Defense was a part of Regiment of Artillery, but it was disintegrated later. So it prevents enemy air attack with the help of self-propelled guns. Moving further, next is the Corps of Engineers. So the Corps of Engineers provide engineering support to the Army, for example, by laying minefields, by detecting mines, then by constructing bridges and defenses. And after completing its technical tasks, they work like a normal infantry. Next is the Corps of Signals, again a very important and technical arm of the Indian Army that is responsible for providing military communication. So as communication is the backbone of military, this arm has a huge role to play, especially in the years to come, because the future battles are going to be hybrid and complex. So detailed video on Corps of Engineers and Corps of Signals are already uploaded, and if you want to watch, click on the I button and go to the playlist, the regimental series. Moving forward, next is the Army Aviation Corps, the youngest arm of the Indian Army that was raised on 1st of November 1986, and it is responsible for providing covering fire to the moving elements like mechanized forces and infantry. And along with it, it is also responsible for the reconnaissance and for providing logistic support to the army, especially in the hostile regions. For example, in Siachen Glacier, it is providing logistic support to the soldiers deployed there. Then comes the special forces. The special forces consist of the unit which are under the direct command of the Indian military, and these are specifically trained, organized and equipped to conduct and support special operations. So they have shown their mettle during various operations. So presently there are 8 special forces unit which are held with the Indian Army, and they have been doing a tremendous job, especially in the CIA operations. Now let us discuss these services. So the first one is ASC, that is the Army Service Corps. So the Army Service Corps supplies rations for the troops and provides fuel, oil and lubricant to keep the vehicles running. So they also maintain a huge fleet of vehicles that is used to mobilize and transport the fighting forces to the intended battlefield. Then the AOC, that is the Army Ordnance Corps. So it is responsible for the maintenance and supply of ammunition for training and operations. So very soon I'm coming up with a detailed video of Army Service Corps as well as the Army Ordnance Corps. Then comes the EME, that is the Corps of Electronics and Mechanical Engineers. So the EME is responsible for the repair and maintenance of vehicles and the weapon system. And I've already uploaded a detailed video regarding the EME. So if you want to watch, click on the I button and go to the playlist regimental series. Next is the Intelligence Corps that acts as the eyes and ears of the designated commander. And it is playing a very important role in collecting and collating the data and finally converting into the actionable information. So it is very effective, especially in the CIA operations. Then comes the Army Education Corps, AEC, which is responsible for providing educational training and for conducting the promotion exams of the troops. Then the Army Medical Corps, the AMC, which is responsible for the issue of advisories on health and hygiene of the formation. And it also includes conducting yearly medical examination of all the troops by providing all the medical facilities. Then the Army Dental Corps, which provides dental care to all the personnel and their dependents. Then talking about Corps of Military Police, that is the CMT. So the CMP is responsible for maintaining high standard of discipline to prevent any breach of security. And during the battle, CMP is responsible for handling prisoners of war and assisting in the regulation of traffic and maintenance of high security alert at all the times. Then the Pioneer Corps, also known as the Pioneers, it is the operational logistics arm of the Indian Army. Although it is not a combat arm, but the Pioneers provide disciplined and well-trained manpower where the civilian labor is either not available or its employment is not desirable. So these units are mostly committed in forward and operational areas. Then talking about the RVC, that is the Remount and Veterinary Corps. The RVC is responsible for the procurement, breeding and training of all the animals held with the services, which include horses, cows, dogs, and they also ensure prevention and treatment of infection diseases to the animals held on charge. Then the Army Postal Service Corps. So the Indian Army has its own postal services, which caters for all the postal needs of the defense services. Then talking about the JAG, that is the Judge Advocate General's Department. It is basically the legal branch of the Indian Army, which deals with the military-related disciplinary cases and assist in providing the legal assistance to the Army in human rights matters. And apart from all these, the other parts of the Indian Army include MNS, that is the Military Nursing Service, then the TA, that is the Territorial Army, which is also known as the second line of defense, where the volunteers, that is the soldiers and the officers, they serve for the Army for around 2 to 3 months a year. Then the Defense Security Corps, that is the DSC, which provides security at the Defense Ministry sites. The main role of the DSC is to ensure security and the protection and security of defense installations against sabotage. Now let us discuss the modernization plan of the Indian Army. So we all are aware that in the recent times, we are facing the threat of two-front war waged by China and Pakistan. So in order to fight two-front war at the same time, the first and the foremost thing that we need is to modernize our army. Because at present, 68% of the equipment held with the Indian Armed Forces are of the vintage category. So therefore, there is a dire need to modernize our armed forces to fight the threat of two-front war. So considering this in mind, the Indian Armed Forces have taken various steps to counter this. For example, the Army has already embarked an infantry modernization program, which is known as the FNSAS, that is the Futuristic Infantry Soldier as a System, where the infantry soldiers will be equipped with the modular weapon system that have multi-functions. For example, there will be the lighter helmets, there will be lighter vest. And apart from infantry, Army is also upgrading the mechanized forces, the artillery guns, and as well as the aviation part. For example, in the armored column, Indian Army is planning to upgrade the indigenous Arjun tank, and very soon we are going to induct the Arjun Mark II with better features. For example, the second variant of Arjun, that is the Arjun Mark II, is coming up with the 93 upgrades. And today, most of the tanks held with the Indian Army are night blind. So the Arjun Mark II will come with better night fighting capability. Then in terms of mechanized infantry also, the Army is planning to upgrade the BMP-2 with various new features. For example, the integration of latest generation fire control system, the twin missile launchers, and anti-tank guided missile, as well as the automatic grenade launchers. Then in terms of artillery also, the Indian Army is upgrading the field guns as well as the howitzer. For example, recently we have inducted the Sharang artillery gun, the indigenously developed Dhanush howitzer, and we have recently procured 155 mm M777 ultra lightweight howitzer gun from US. Then the Indian Army is procuring various anti-tank guided missile system, for example, Spike anti-tank guided missile from Israel, and various missile launchers. Then finally, a battlefield management system is being developed to integrate various units of the Army, for example, the mechanization forces, then the artillery, infantry, and aviation branches into digital network that will link together all components of the future battlefield. Very soon we are going to have integrated theater command, and along with it, Indian Army is also planning a new formation called integrated battle groups. And very soon I'm coming up with a detailed video of integrated theater command and integrated battle group that will be helpful for you. Now let us talk about the various conflicts and operations of the Indian Army. So pre-independence also, Indian Army has taken part in a number of battles throughout the world. Now talking about the conflicts and operation after independence. So the very first was the first Kashmir War of 1947 after the partition of India. Then there was Operation Polo of 1948, which was the annexation of Hyderabad. Then there was the Indo-China War of 1962. Then two wars with Pakistan, 1965 War and 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War. Then there were conflicts with China in 1967. Then in 1984, there was Siachen conflict, where the Operation Meghdut was launched by the Indian Army. And in the same year, Operation Blue Star and Operation Waterhouse was also launched. Then in 1987, there was Operation Pavan, which was launched by Indian Army in Sri Lanka. And from last 30 years, that is from 1990, Indian Army is engaging in CIA operations, especially in the Kashmir Valley, to fight the proxy war waged by Pakistan. Then in 1999, there was a Kargil War. The Operation Vijay was launched by the Indian Army. Then in 2001, the Operation Parakram was launched by Indian Army after the attack on the Indian Parliament. Then in 2016, the very famous surgical strikes were launched by Indian Army after the Uri attack. And thereafter, there was a standoff between India and China on the Rok. Then in 2019, after the Pulwama attack, the Balakot strikes were launched by the Indian Armed Forces, although the major operation was carried by Indian Air Force. But the Indian Army played a huge role in the success of the operation. Then from last year, we have seen there was a standoff with China since June 15, when there was a conflict in Galwan Valley as well as in the Pangong Lake. And apart from all these, the other operations include the Operation Brass Tacks, which was launched by the Army in November 1986, basically to simulate a full-scale war on India's western border with Pakistan. And this exercise was the largest ever conducted in India, and it included 9 infantry, 3 mechanized, 3 armored divisions, and 1 air assault division, as well as 3 independent armored brigades. And apart from these, Indian Army is subscribing troops for the United Nations peacekeeping missions from last many decades. And so far, India has taken part in 43 peacekeeping missions. And in 2014, India was the 3rd largest troop contributor, that is the TCC, to the United Nations peacekeeping missions. Now let us talk about the major exercises conducted by Indian Army, both bilateral and trilateral exercises. So the first is the exercise Nomadic Elephant, that is with Mongolia. Then the exercise Ashwamedha, where the Indian Army tested its network-centric warfare capabilities. And this exercise was held in the 3rd region of Rajasthan, where more than 3 lakh troops participated. Then there is exercise Yudh Abhyas with the USA, and exercise Shakti with the France, and exercise Shurveer, which was conducted in May 2012. So the Indian Army launched a massive summer exercise in Rajasthan desert, which basically included the 50,000 troops and several hundred artillery pieces. And apart from these, other bilateral exercises include the Sampriti exercise, which is between India and Bangladesh, then the Mitra Shakti between India and Sri Lanka, the Maitri exercise between India and Thailand, Vajra Prahar between India and US, then the Garuda Shakti, which is between India and Indonesia, and Dharma Guardian with Japan. So we have a Surya Kiran bilateral exercise with Nepal, and hand-in-hand exercise with India and China. And we have trilateral exercise, which is the Malabar exercise. So these are the major exercises launched by the Indian Army, although I have not mentioned most of the exercises here, but these are not important considering SSB in mind. So this is all about today's video.